In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Please be seated. Hallelujah, Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Hallelujah. Our gospel text today deals with belief. Jesus was crucified and died, and that is a fact. As we know, that's hardly the end of the story. Our text today deals with the first week or so after the crucifixion and has bearing on our lives today, nearly 2,000 years later. Now you'll remember from our gospel text last week on Easter Sunday that in the few days after the crucifixion, it appeared that things had not gone as people expected they would. The three women went to bring spices to the tomb to treat the dead body of Jesus. When they arrived, though, they were surprised and actually stunned to find that the tomb was empty. They were met by two men dressed in dazzlingly bright clothes who told them that Jesus had risen, just as he told them he would, and that he would be found in Galilee. The women were astounded and ran back to tell the disciples the good news. And I want to say something very important here. They were convinced. These women were convinced. They remembered what Jesus had said beforehand, and now they believed that he had risen. They believed the words of Jesus. You'll remember how the others received this good news. They thought it was an idle tale. And they almost all of them gave it no more thought, with one exception, Peter. Peter ran to the tomb, and when he saw that it was empty, we are told that he was amazed. Now, we aren't told that he believed, but at a minimum, he had to be considering that what the women reported was true. Or shall I say, what Jesus had said before had come true. That he would be handed over to the authorities and put on trial, abused, crucified, and would be raised in 3 days, and then see them in Galilee. We don't know what Peter did exactly the rest of that day. All we know is that he was amazed. He likely returned to the other disciples and told them what he had experienced. And we don't know how they received the news. Did they continue to discount it as an idle tale? Or did they start to wonder themselves? In any case, our text for today says that later on that day, when it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and the doors of the house where the disciples had met were locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. And I'm sure they did rejoice. In fact, they were rejoicing so much that Jesus had to calm them down. He had greeted them initially by saying, "Peace be with you." And he had to say this again when they finally believed that he was truly with them. And there was no mistaking him. He made the point of showing them his hands and his side, the wounds that he suffered on the cross. So far now, we have two stories of belief. The first story, we have the belief of the women. They believed that Jesus had risen because when they arrived at the tomb, it was empty. And they were told that Jesus had risen and that he had said he would. They believed because they believed the words of Jesus. The next story of belief involves the disciples. They had clearly not believed the witness of the women. Did Peter himself believe when he saw the empty tomb? Well, we don't know, but I'm betting that he was starting to come around. The important thing, though, is in our text, is that it took more for the disciples to believe. himself and showing them his wounds. They had to see in order to believe. Now, I don't want to criticize them for this, but I'm simply pointing out that the women believed because they believed once they remembered what they had heard Jesus say before he was crucified. To be fair, the women did go to the tomb expecting to find a dead body. But once they were reminded of the words of Jesus, their faith was made solid. So now we move forward in our text and we come upon Thomas. He wasn't present when Jesus appeared to the others. They tell them about the appearance. They tell Thomas about the appearance. But Thomas doesn't believe him. Unless I see in his hands the print of the nails, and I place my finger in the mark of the nails, and I place my hand in his side, I will not believe. So let's think about this. The women had forgotten what Jesus said, but when they saw the empty tomb and were reminded of what Jesus had said, they believed. When the disciples heard their testimony, they dismissed it. Peter saw the empty tomb and was amazed, but it took Jesus appearing, showing the disciples his wounds, in order for them to believe. Once that had happened, though, in fact, they did believe, and they testified this to Thomas. We don't know why Thomas would not believe their testimony. Was he so overwhelmed with fear and grief that he didn't want to be let down again? I think that's a strong possibility. He, in any case, needed solid evidence. Now, this is rather odd, given the fact that he had traveled with Jesus for 3 years and had witnessed all these saving acts, his healing of lepers, his giving sight to the blind. He even witnessed Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. Now, I would think that that would have been enough solid evidence, along with the testimony of his fellow disciples. But it was not. They took Jesus appearing again, and this time telling Thomas to stick his hand into the wound to prove that he really had risen. So I ask, what does it take us to believe that Jesus is risen? What does it take for the people of the world to believe that Jesus is risen? Perhaps the biggest stumbling block for people is time. We live 2,000 years after these events. They're all recorded in the Bible, but many people don't believe the Bible. Because of scientific discoveries over the last several centuries, which have seemingly contradicted biblical accounts of creation, for instance, many people disregard everything that the Bible has to say. They think of it at best as a nice story, or maybe an idle tale, but not something to be regarded as factually true. For these people, the Bible is discredited because scientific evidence shows that the universe was not created in 6 days. That's how the Bible refers to it. We don't know the length of the day, but that's how the Bible presents it. And that the universe is far older than the way the Bible measures the universe. Well, these people want hard facts. They want proof. They are Thomas. They want to stick their hand into Jesus' wounds, and maybe then they will believe. They are people of the modern scientific age, the age where things to be believed must and can be proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, and faith is not involved at all. But when we look at the advances in science, though, in the last century, we find that this reasoning does not hold up. There are realities in the physical world, I want to stress this word, realities, things which can be observed, which cannot be measured precisely nor explained beyond the shadow of a doubt. This is especially so in the realm of advanced physics. Einstein's advances have given us an understanding about the physical world that goes far beyond what Isaac Newton had taught. Newton's discoveries were verifiable. And by the way, Newton believed that the universe was governed by these verifiable principles and established. These principles were established by God. Einstein went beyond Newton and offered observations about the physical world which could not cannot be proven beyond the shadow of a doubt. His observations were based upon relationships between things. And this meant that the world operated in a relationship with itself. And while certain things could be predicted as likely to occur, it could not be proven. There are many things that we cannot stick our fingers into, and yet they exist. And people in the scientific community have enough faith in their accuracy that they treat them as being true as they continue to research and observe the physical world. I want you to hear what Christopher Southgate has to say about this. Christopher Southgate has a PhD in biochemistry from Cambridge University in England and is also a research fellow in theology at the University of Exeter in England. He writes about the imprecision that exists in scientific research today because of the fact that it is impossible to measure in a precise, quantifiable way what scientists observe. In his work as a scientist and a theologian, Southgate says, "We do not live in a predictable universe, but in one in which it is not even theoretically possible to predict in minute detail what will happen next. In order to proceed with our investigations, we must first explore what might be the relationship between physical law and divine action, and exactly what might be meant by the word chance, a word that is problematic in this field, as well as nature in the field of ecological theology. The point I want to make is that in the world of advanced science, things are understood to be true that cannot be proven, that we cannot stick our fingers into. And I would like to add that there are a great number of Christopher Southgates out there, that is, eminent scientists with advanced degrees who have also been trained as theologians, and they work actively in both fields as researchers and professors at universities in England, as well as in this country. Princeton University is one such place. I have talked about belief. The belief of the women when they saw the empty tomb. The belief of the disciples when Jesus appeared. Thomas's refusal to believe until Jesus told him to stick his hand into his wound. And then how scientists have belief in principles that govern their work that cannot be proven. So now I want to speak about us. I think it all comes down to Jesus. John calls Jesus Word made flesh. Jesus is at the same time the Son of God and human. When he lived on this earth, he spoke, and he spoke words. The women remembered his words, and they believed his words because they believed Jesus was the Messiah. They had forgotten some of his words, however, when they went to the tomb with the spices for his dead body. But when they saw that tomb empty, and they were reminded of his words that he would be raised, they believed. Jesus has spoken. He spoke the truth. He is risen. He appeared to the disciples and he offered them his peace. He also sent them out into the world to proclaim this good news. He also appeared to that skeptical, doubting Thomas. And he had a message for him. Do not doubt, but believe. And those are the words that Jesus has for us today in 2019. Do not doubt, but believe. Jesus is telling us this so that we will spread this good news to others. Jesus appeared to those disciples when they were at their lowest, feeling defeated and afraid. Afraid for the present and afraid for the future. Jesus is telling us to be with those who are laid low, who are afraid for their future, and bring them this good news. He is risen. This news may seem hard to believe to the skeptics of the world, to those whose intellectual pride may close their hearts and minds to this saving message. But it's odd, though. It's a little bit like the disciples who scoffed at the women's report as being an idle tale. So let us be reminded once more of the words of Jesus. Do not doubt, but believe. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe. And let us bring to all that we encounter, all the people we encounter, through our words and our deeds and our prayers, the message, Alleluia, Christ is risen, He is risen indeed, Alleluia, all to the glory of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.